Welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group, bringing you interviews with Colorado's best real estate and mortgage professionals, empowering you to understand the current trends in the housing market so you can make the American dream your reality. Enjoy today's episode.
Well, it's a great day in Colorado, and welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast. Today, we have with us Jake Wilson, who's a loan officer with DayOne Mortgage Group and president of the Conscious Energy Collective. Jake, welcome to the program.
Mike, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm excited to talk to you because this looks like a curious and powerful combination. Conscious energy and mortgages. Wow, I want to learn all about how those connect, but to get us started off, what's your background? What led you into the mortgage business to begin with?
Well, to give a little background, I'll start with I am actually one of the few that are Denver born and raised, city of Denver. So one of those rarities, one of those. Grew up here, went to the University of Colorado at Boulder and studied the environmental design and architecture program up there and started studying solar there. So that would be telling dates now, it'd probably be about 20 years ago now.
Wow.
And obviously, different world back then. Went to a couple of different things, obviously, through there after graduating with a degree in architecture, worked for an architecture firm, some international training development programs where I led and trained programs there. But about 4.5 years ago, almost about 4 years ago, I started a solar company. I had previously gotten solar on a house and the end of 2016, I think it would be. And I just didn't really enjoy the experience. In the sense, I mean, the guy was nice, but the result was I had a product that ended up doubling my monthly expense, did not cover my usage. And there was a lot of things where I believed in solar, but I knew it could be done a different way. Fast forward a little bit, I pretty much I was doing some sales consulting, and a solar company wanted me to build out a sales team for them. And as I kind of dove into the industry, that's where I kind of saw there was a lack of education, a lack of resource, because in solar, we're selling a financial product without a license, is the best way to say it. So most people in the solar industry are not educated in finance, in loan products, and what sets up homeowners. And I noticed that right away in the industry and really wanted to find a different way of doing it. Well, flash forward to COVID. I had a very nice business model. I had a big team. I even had somebody who was going to be doing some solar specific refis for people. Then, of course, COVID happened. Everything shuts down. And I decide, well, I might as well make the most of the month of March and got my mortgage license. And spent about the last 2 years really refining and figuring out the best way to finance solar. And a solar refinance, when it works, is the best one, but there's a lot of different loan products. And really wanted to position myself as one of the leaders in the solar industry for finance education. How do you educate the homeowner? How do you make sure to pick the right product for the homeowner, as solar has also changed in how Fannie and Freddie Mae are dealing with it and how it works on property. So as a very quick overview, it kind of led to from one thing to another, where now I'm one of the go-to experts on how solar impacts finance on homes. And I'll actually throw one more thing in. Right when I started my solar company, I created a continuing education course for realtors. So even before I was a lender, I was teaching and training realtors on how to value, look at solar, and how an appraiser would look at and how much value it can add. So having been leading that course for about 3.5 years now, having also now been a lender, a lot of times I have realtors that will come to me now asking for, well, how do we value the solar on this property? How much is it worth? Does it add anything from a buyer or seller side? And I'm happy. I always do that for people that don't charge for that, because I mean, it'd be a little greedy considering it doesn't take a whole lot of time, and there's nobody else really that I know out there that does or can do it. So one of the things that I have to happily do for the industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. Awesome. I love the education teaching aspect. That's what people want. They don't want to be sold. They want to be educated. They want to buy under them understanding things. And so I love that approach. And I want to touch on for starters, what you said about how solar impacts the value of a home. And that becomes something that is a competitive advantage when you are talking either as a partner to a real estate agent to go, hey, we can partner up together and I can provide this program. And it helps you and the agent stand out from both of your competitors because you're talking about something unique and actually tangible, because it's actually sitting on your house, and it does more than sit on your house. It's an asset. It increases the value of the house and it saves you money. So talk a little bit about how those benefits are and what some of the savings are and some of the increased value. How does that work?
Well, you said it very well, but I'm going to be very clear on the wording that I'm going to use here, in that solar can do all those things, but it very much 100% determines on the company they went with and the salesperson that they choose to go with. How majority of the sales in solar work is there's a red line where people have to sell it above, and each company has a red line. Each rep sometimes has a different red line, so they get to pretty much choose what they want to sell it at. But then even more importantly is the financing that they choose to buy it at. Now, if they buy it cash or if it's paid off, great. But majority of homes will carry some sort of loan. They still get a tax credit. It can still be a benefit. But if they choose the wrong loan program for the wrong home, then there's extra fees involved, which completely eat away at the equity. And then it actually just kind of is essentially a wash. It very rarely will ever be a big detriment, but more often than not, through most solar companies, because again, most of them are not educated enough to pick the right financial product, a lot of them will end up just being a wash. And that's part of the reason why I created my solar company, is to educate the industry and to do it differently. When people go to us, we will show them the differences and why. And a lot of it just has to do with determine the interest rate that you choose and how long they're going to be in the home for. Are they going to plan on selling the home in 2 to 5 years, or they plan on being here for a while? And then you pick the right loan. And if that's the case, if they pick the right loan program or the right way to finance it, then it always will have those benefits. Now, what are some of those benefits? There is an increase in equity. The equity does not take place until the system is paid off. If there is a loan on the system, there is what's called the UCC filing. Now, this is when people are purchasing the system. If somebody leases or does a power purchase agreement, they do not own the system. They do not get the tax credits for the system, and they're pretty much stuck in a 20 to 25-year contract. Those are very, very rare these days. They were very popular in the early to mid-teen, 20-teens. So a lot of real estate agents will see them coming up. They're not bad, but right now, in terms of if somebody was choosing to move forward, it would be the lowest possible option for almost anybody, and there's not really a benefit. So we're going to talk mostly about when people are purchasing solar panels. So if you're purchasing, you can either do it as a cash or some version of a loan. Now, if they're doing a regular solar loan, those can get, there's a lot of different products, and that's where it determines if there's value or not. When the system's paid off, there is equity added to the home. This is where there's appraisers are learning this themselves. This is where I offer it to realtors. If somebody's buying or selling a house that has solar on it, to reach out to me, and I'm happy to just give them a full breakdown of this, because it really has nothing to do with the cost of the system, Mike. So, Mike, let me ask you this question: which system do you think is worth more, has more equity? A system that somebody bought for $25,000 that was, we'll call it a 10 kilowatt system, or if somebody bought a 10 kilowatt system for $50,000, which one do you think adds more equity to the home?
I would say the same kilowatt system for the lower priced 10,000 or 25,000.
So it's actually a little bit of a trick question. The equity that it adds is the same regardless of the contract price. Now, whether it's a benefit or not is different, because if they have a higher loan on it, they may not be able to get it. But the equity that the system would add when the system is paid off is going to be the same regardless. So sorry, that was a little bit of a trick question.
Yeah, you tricked me, sir. But I do see what you mean, because it's the same kilowatt system, so it's the same dollar value. It doesn't matter whether you paid $1 or $1 billion. It's the same system.
It's going to produce, and the major thing that determines what the value of the system is going to add to the equity. And on Fannie Mae, if you look it up, and I can send you the link for it, solar panels do add value to a home. They don't really specify exactly an amount. So I put together a few things that when you look at, you're able to determine it. One of which is there a warranty? That's just from a peace of mind standpoint, always a huge piece. Then we look at, most importantly, how much is that system offsetting dollar-wise a year? If that system is saving you $1,000 a year, then we know that we know it's warranted for 25, 30 years. We know that for at least that time frame, it's going to save you at least $25,000, $30,000. But we also know utilities go up on average about 4% a year. Here in Colorado, we just had a massive increase, but more so, we are now on time of use. Are you familiar with that, Mike?
I think so. I think that's a pretty new change where if you're using it at peak hours.
So this is big for anybody that has Excel in Denver, which is most people. Everybody's being transitioned over to this. If you haven't already, you soon will be. I just did at my house. So there is a flat rate, which is about, I believe, 14 cents a kilowatt hour approximately, because they did just have another little 4% increase this year. Between 1 and 3 p.m., it's about 18 cents. I think it's 19 cents a kilowatt hour. And between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., I believe it maxes out at 28.8 cents a kilowatt hour. So during the 1 to 7, you do not want to be using things like your washing machine, your dryer, you want to limit your AC usage, because that is where that $1,000 that may have saved people last year, maybe $1,500 this year. So the value of the system determines on how much it offsets of what people use. That's the value. And because if somebody's buying that home over the next 20 years, you're going to have this expense one way or the other. Now, your utility bill does not count towards your DTI, but you're in a lease agreement with the utility company, and they get to charge you whatever they want, change it whenever they want. You are in a forever lease that they raise every single year on top of inflation, and you have no say. Wow. So that money, it's not. People think, well, I'm paying this bill anyways. I don't want to just have another bill. Well, if you're paying a $200, let's just say a $200 solar loan, and your electric bill was $200. The difference is actually about a $400 ROI, because the $200 electric bill is not a zero ROI. It's actually minus 200. You're literally giving that money away. You're not giving any equity. You're not have nothing to show for it. There's no value. You're literally just giving that money away. It's like renting. But when you own it, you're making that payment, but that payment goes towards your principal and the equity that your system adds. So you're actually starting to pay for and paying off your entire electricity system. And the systems now, most of them are, the ones that we do are warranted for 30 years, but they're going to last much longer than that. Good systems that most people will be putting on, the worst ones will be warranted for 20 years. 25 to 30 years is now becoming the standard, but they're still going to last 40, 50 years. They'll just drop in efficiency. Just to give you an example, one of the panels that we have, after 25 years, it's still at 92% effective as it was brand new.
Wow. So that brings another advantage, in my opinion. Hearing your explanation there is a perceived advantage. So yes, I've got ROI and equity and all those things you mentioned, because there could be, some differences. But if you are trying to have your home stand out and get, better listing visibility, if you have solar, you've got a perceived advantage because of the long-term energy savings for the new buyer. So now here's a real estate agent that is going, it might bump a little in value, but the main thing is look at the long-term energy savings. And that's a huge selling point, I would suspect, right?
Well, that's the big thing. As people are looking at it, the analogy I give you would be this. Mike, if you could buy the next 30 years of gas at today's gas prices, would you do it?
Not today.
Well, I'm saying right now. I'm saying the next 30 years. Do you think it's going to get better in the future? Do you think it's going to be cheaper?
I know where you're going, but I don't know.
It never will. You're just talking with inflation. It might seem expensive now, but wait 5 years, wait 10 years. You're going to be dreaming of what these prices are now. You wait 30 years. Imagine
Yeah.
what the price of gas is going to be in 30 years. You think it's
Yeah.
bad here? Look over in Europe.
Well, like
It's
the markets, they
$10 a
go
gallon
up
out
and
there.
down and all around in volatility. Back in high school, when you're a senior, you do. I know for me, when we did like these senior little project books, and it was like, hey, what's the price of a loaf of bread, of gas, of movies? And you look back at that now, and it's amazing. So yeah, you might think gas prices are high right this minute. They could come down and all that, but over time, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road,
They never will.
That's
It's just
they're going to go up.
Inflation, though.
Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
just from inflation. Like the cost of it, like even if the price goes down back down to like maybe $4 one day, but just think about just the cost of all that and the value of all that. That's why I say, I could even say it differently. Imagine if you purchase your energy for your home today for the next 30 years at today's prices. You're locking in your usage for the next 30, 20, 30 plus years. Now, granted, you may not be in the home for that long. So that's where you want to look at making sure you move it as the right investment, which means you have to select the right way financially. There are tax benefits. There are some amazing tax benefits. Some of them end at the end of this year. Some of them do not. And everybody's situation is unique. But depending on if somebody's getting solar newly, this is the best time because and now, granted, not everybody can go solar, but when you can, you're going to add a massive differentiator on your house when it's done right. If you go to it with a company that maybe you like a name of them, but again, that makes very little difference. If they sell you the wrong system or a system that was overcharged, you're not going to be able to make any money off of that. Because when you sell the home, one problem is you either have to pay it off. The other problem is, and this is the big change, Mike, and this is the thing that people do need to know. This is the change that got made at the beginning of this year. Anybody who, let's just say somebody gets a solar and they don't go with the right person and they get charged extra, and let's just say they got charged $50,000 for a system that should have been $40,000. Well, they still have to pay off that $50,000. So let's just say they have $35,000 left on the loan. That amount that's left in the loan, if they're not paying it off at closing and they're transferring it to the new homeowners, for the new homeowners, that now shows up as under DTI, and it shows up as a second mortgage. So their combined LTV cannot be above $97. Otherwise, they have to bring additional money to close from whatever that solar amount is to bring it down to 97%. So going solar is great, but if you don't go with the right company, and we're always happy to consult or just review anything that people have, because if you go with the wrong company, it may seem good or it may be a really reputable company, but it makes no difference in whether it's a benefit to your home or not. And unfortunately, I've seen cases where it's not. It's not the end all be all for it, but it makes it a lot harder to either sell or it costs them money in the future when it's not done right.
Yes. Wow. Well, Jake, you just really opened our eyes on some really unique and interesting aspects. I just love your teaching and education approach. And this is just such a neat way to stand out in the real estate industry. So if someone is listening to this and wants to learn more about the Conscious Energy Collective and all of the ways that you can help them potentially even with financing and refinancing, what's the best way that they can reach out and connect with you?
So they can always reach out to me directly. My office line is 720-235-8302. Our website is consciousec.com. And if anyone has any solar specific loan questions, whether they want to bundle it in or see if it could work, they can go to solar-refi.com.
Excellent. Well, Jake, thank you so much for being on today. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you for listening to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.coloradorealestateleaders.com.